What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today we're going to talk about Crescent. And as you might have noticed, I don't have her new uniform, and there is a good reason for that. Right now, currently, I have about 1,200 crystals, and I want to unequip this White Fox card for my all new, all different Marvel card that I have here, which is really going to increase a lot of my physical attack, especially. Plus, I have 5 blue stars on this card, and that's going to cost some crystals. And all I'm doing is waiting for the card unequipping event so I can do that, because I only have 1,200 crystals, and I really don't want to spend any money because, you know, I've been on lockdown in Vietnam for now over 4 months, which means I haven't worked my regular job in that amount of time. So I'm just really not having much of an income. And the truth is, when it comes to Crescent's uniform, for me, it's not going to be worth buying. I think for maybe some players out there, it's going to be worth buying. I do believe that it is an ABX meta uniform, which is something to note about the uniform. Also, there's just some changes that has been done to this thing that is going to be very useful. I mean, one change is they changed the leadership from increase to combat types to increase to all allies that have physical attack, right? So that means she's going to be more viable as a leadership for other characters, you know, having an extra 60% physical attack. That is pretty massive. Plus, they actually gave her the increased guaranteed critical rate, which is really nice. That's going to help proc the CTP of Rage, which is going to be the optimal obelisk for this character. But the thing about Crescent for me is, you know, one, she's a female, right? So the fact that she's a female means that, and this really can go for a lot of characters, but you know, I'm a player that plays Null, and you know, you can only use her up to stage 9, and then once you get to 10, you need males, and then once you get up to 15, you can use humans. So you can use her from 15 to 19, which is pretty cool, right? But then when you get to 20, you got to use males again. I honestly can't stand these restrictions. This used to be something I liked, but I'm actually getting to where I hate it. And then from 25 to 29, you can use female. Well, the thing is, her leadership only applies to character with physical attack, right? The question you'd have to ask yourself is, how many physical attacking characters are female? How many characters is she actually going to buff from her leadership? Well, whenever I take a look at the characters that have physical attack, that are awakened and have tier 3s, I mean, there's obviously a lot of great characters that could take advantage of this. I mean, you got Moon Knight, but he's a male. You got Maker, but he has his own leadership. You have Null, who uses his own leadership. You got Quicksilver. I mean, there's actually a lot of good male types that actually have some decent damage that can really take advantage of her leadership. But when it comes to the females, there really isn't a whole lot to speak of. I mean, what physical attacking female is she actually going to buff up other than herself? I mean, you have X-23. X-23 isn't very strong. By the way, Shang-Chi's another great one for that physical attack. War Machine's going to be another. I mean, for the male types, it's going to be a great leadership. But for the females, it's really not going to be that great because the females aren't that good. You got Jessica, right? She's a physical attacking character. She isn't very good. You got Valkyrie, who, I mean, is a great support, but really isn't that strong against Null, especially when you start getting in, you know, stage 24. You got Yelena. I mean, that's a tough call, my friends. I mean, Yelena's got some decent power, but she's really not the great, especially when you start getting in that highest stage. You got Mystique, right? She's not, I mean, she doesn't do that well on that highest stage. You have Black Widow, Gwenom. I mean, these characters are not that strong. So when you start getting up in those higher stages, at least from 24 to 29, then her leadership really isn't that relevant other than for herself. And from what I've seen from all the videos so far, she really isn't all that strong. And something about the character and something about her kit that's pretty wacky is the fact that, you know, she does have the damage accumulation on her second skill, and they did give her ignore iframe. By the way, just to speak of, her PvP potential is actually really good. I don't think she's going to be a meta, but it is good. She is very good in PvP, not too bad at all. Definitely going to be an AC meta for sure, if that matters to anybody. And definitely if you're using her against regular world bosses, her leadership's going to apply to all the characters at once, right? You're not looking at all these little restrictions that World Boss Legend has. So she would become more relevant for that. Another thing about her is the fact that she's a paywall. So you got to buy a bio sub to level her up. I mean, a lot of people might already have Crescent because in past events they were giving us bios. But if you're a newer player, you're not going to have any bios for her. So that's something else to think about. I mean, that's the thing about this character, right? She's a paywall. So, you know, players are going to be more critical of her. I mean, I know I'm definitely more critical of her. And the thing about the character is, you know, she does have the damage accumulation, and it's based on how much damage you take. Well, the thing is, her only form of invincibility is on her fifth skill, which is an iframe. So it's really difficult for the character to take damage. Now, her tier 3 is not an iframe, so she can actually take damage. So whenever you're playing her in ABX, you can actually take damage. But the thing about the character is she still plays the same. And this is something, you know, for me that I've never liked the way Crescent plays. I mean, this fifth skill is her invincibility, right? Look at this. It's an iframe. How is she supposed to take damage during that skill? And her other skills they're going to leave her vulnerable to take damage. Now, Crescent does have some heals in her kits, right? Which is nice. She does have heals. And she is a very tanky girl because now, you know, she has decreased damage received also. So, I mean, I don't think survivability is a massive issue for her in World Boss. I just think it's going to be really difficult to take damage unless you're timing that tier 3 to take damage. Also, the thing about the character is, you know, she's going to have to use a rage to really be optimal. She doesn't have any elemental damage, so the rage is the only way you're going to play her. I don't think she's going to be very proc friendly at all. And another thing about her is, you know, you got Io there, right? Io doesn't really draw aggro against World Boss Legend. And he doesn't really do damage for anything against the Null or Mephisto. And Crescent has a type disadvantage against Mephisto, right? So Null is really the boss that you're going to want to fight with her. And I don't know, man. You know, I like the more I think about it, the more I think that I just don't really need her. I mean, for ABX, I think yes. I think for ABX, I mean, if you're ABX oriented, she's going to be a very valuable character because, again, I do believe she is going to be the ABX meta. I've already seen runs where she's topping, you know, combat hero days. She's already, you know, pretty much becoming the #1. I've seen her almost hit 9 million in ABX. So I do believe she has relevance there. But the thing about ABX is ABX doesn't give that much rewards. I mean, if you're already scoring 7 million, 6 million, whatever, with Valkyrie or Moon Knight or Venom, whatever you're doing, you know, character you're using, then you're really not going to need her. And you're not going to need her for a later ship for ABX because you already got She-Hulk. I mean, that's kind of the thing about this character, right? Like, they made her relevant as, you know, an ABX meta, but her leadership is good. Don't get me wrong, it is good. It has its place for sure. But if it's only applying to the physical attacking females, it's really not that relevant because we don't really have that strong physical attacking females. I mean, Medusa, but Medusa already has a self-buffing leadership that you would use. She's already got an increase to 45% increase to universal types. I mean, I know this is 60%, but still, I mean, that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking about. You know, it's just like, how valuable is this character? How valuable is this uniform? And by the way, I do think that the uniform looks freaking awesome. I mean, she does look like a Space Mickey Mouse, which is kind of funny. Space Mickey, I guess is what we could call her. But she just, I don't know, you know, I don't like her play style personally. And I just think her leadership is just kind of, I don't want to say niche. It doesn't have that much importance for a player like myself, especially when I start looking at my restrictions because, you know, currently right now in Null, I'm in the stage 24 to 29 range having 13% Pierce. And her leadership isn't going to help. It isn't going to help at all unless I'm using her as a damage dealer. And again, from what I've seen so far, she really doesn't do that well in World Boss. It's funny how characters end up becoming ABX metas, right? She isn't the first one this happened to. But they're not really that great in World Boss. I mean, that's pretty interesting how Netmarble keeps doing that. But I do think it's a decent uniform for PvP, and I do think it's going to be a great uniform for ABX. But the fact that it's a paywall just sours the taste in your mouth, right? It just sours the taste in your mouth. You're just thinking to yourself, well, I mean, yeah, but she's a paywall, right? Am I going to spend money on a paywall uniform and, you know, spend crystals for a uniform that the leadership, yeah, it's going to be really good in all the regular world bosses. It's going to be good from stage 1 to 9, and then from stage 14 to 19. It's going to be really good. But from stage 10 to 14 and stages 24 to 29, it's not going to be very good at all for a lot of players out there. And then just to level up a uniform for ABX, which doesn't give that greater rewards, especially if you're already scoring, you know, that 6, 7, you know, million with Venom or Moon Knight. I mean, the thing is, I can already hit 8 million with my Moon Knight on a good run. Yeah. So for me, it's just not worth buying. But really the main reason that I'm not going to buy it, because I really did want to do a solid review for you guys instead of doing something like this, is just because I'm saving the crystals that I have for the card on equipping. I mean, that's the only reason I'm really saving. Otherwise, I would have bought the uniform. But I really think for myself, if I would have bought the uniform, it probably would have sat on the sidelines. I don't think I would have tier 3'd her, because if she's just going to be an ABX meta and just increase my score by 1,000,000 or maybe a little bit more, to me, it's just not going to be worth it. Maybe for some players out there, it will be worth it. Maybe that's enough for you, especially if you're ABX competitive, then it's absolutely going to be worth it. I mean, it's a big upgrade from what she had. That is absolutely for sure. I feel like Netmarble once again just dropped the ball on Crescent. I don't think they really gave her what she deserves. I wish they would have changed her play style. Wish they made it a little bit easier for her to take damage when she's using her regular skills instead of always having to try to use her tier 3 to take damage. I mean, that's a bum deal, man. You know, characters that are difficult to play, characters that only can use rages, it's a real bummer, because characters that use rage, you know, they're not going to have extra chain hit damage, right? Like what you get from CTP of Judgment or CTP of Energy. And we all know whenever characters have extra chain hit, they just do a lot better in World Boss, because that chain hit synergizes with Pierce. It's funny how, you know, Netmarble introducing Pierce has actually made the rage less relevant until one day maybe we have a reforged rage for this character. So personally for me, I think all that she's really going to be for a lot of players as far as this uniform is concerned is just being a support and an ABX meta and having some usefulness in PvP. And if that's enough for you, then it's probably going to be worth buying, but I would highly recommend that you just wait for Black Friday, because this is a very expensive uniform to level up. So let me know how y'all feeling about Space Mickey, and I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT plus 7 time. The link will be in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.